What's up, guys? That is the audience that we've got today. Wilson and Pharrell have just absolutely shocked themselves by running around fighting with each other and then looking up to see that entire herd of cattle staring at them. Right, well, today is Tuesday, which can mean only one thing. I haven't got one major topic for today's Electric Tuesday, so I thought we'd cover a couple of things. Roll the sting. Now, in yesterday's video, I talked about team radio, Formula One team radio, didn't I? I talked about how the protocols worked with regards to the team members in the garage hearing radio traffic to call them out for a pit stop and that kind of thing. And in the comment section, quite a few of you wanted to know a bit more about team radio, about the kind of instructions that were used, and a few more details. So I thought I'd cover a little bit of that first of all. Somebody asked me, why do they call, when it's time for a pit stop, why do they call box on the radio instead of just saying pit, or, you know, time for a pit stop or anything else? Well, it kind of just boils down to, whenever you're talking about critical radio communications, whether it's in the military, whether it's in air traffic control or Formula One or anything like that, you have to find a communication or a means of communication that's simplified, that can't be confused for anything else, and that is very quick and easy to understand. And box is a word, you know, it obviously refers to the box that's painted on the floor in the pit lane, your pit stop box, but it's a word that's pretty easily distinguishable. If you're thinking about the word pit or pit stop or, you know, come in, there are many different variables that could actually be confused with if you were just talking in a conversational style voice. So everybody comes up with a series of words which for them can have only one meaning, are very distinguishable between each other, and that's the way we do it. So box is a really easy thing to hear and to understand, even if radio communications are a bit strained at times, if coverage is not great. Box is a nice, clear, simple instruction. So that's that one. The other question that came up was about teams listening in to each other's radio communications. And of course, in today's world, that's very easy, because it's a very different setup. Within the regulations now, all teams, in fact all radio communications, have to be open to the FIA. So sorry, that's all pit to car and car to pit communications have to be open to the FIA and to all broadcasters. So most teams now, back at their mission control, so back at the factory, they have a room at the factory where loads and loads of team personnel are working on lots of different things. Personnel that they can't take to the racetrack themselves are all working on lots of engineering tasks, on lots of strategy tasks, and it is somebody's job in each of those teams to constantly monitor the radio traffic of all of the other teams, and it'll be more than one person's job, because of course in doing so you can pick up vital information about what other teams are doing, about how their car's behaving, about what a driver is thinking about his current strategy, whether he thinks his tyres are getting close to the limit. And yes, you can of course start playing games in that scenario, where you can start using radio messages to try and trick the opposition, and that absolutely happens. We've heard it, you know, in pretty recent times. Lewis Hamilton has done it with Mercedes. I think earlier this season we heard it, certainly last season. And so teams have to be aware of that, and they have to start reading between the lines, and you get to know certain drivers and certain teams and the way they operate. But that information is all there to be monitored if the teams were, you know, so desire to do it. Back in the old days, though, it was all a bit different. Back in the old days. Back in the good old days. It was all a bit different, because back then team communications didn't have to be broadcast, and the teams had a privacy button on their intercom system that could actually protect their radio comms at certain times from the broadcasters and from the FIA. So if they were talking about something strategic or something that was secret, they could press the privacy button and it would be restricted to only going within their own team communication systems. Now that of course meant that there could be a competitive advantage to be had if you could find a way to uncover those radio messages from another team that were so desperately trying to be protected. I remember going through a period of time when we at McLaren and most of the other big teams, I think Ferrari even started this or took this to the next level, using very, very complex and quite expensive military grade encryption systems on their radio transmissions to try and protect what they were saying from the opposition. Of course, the flip side of that meant that us and most of the other big teams were also spending a huge amount of time and resource on military grade scanner systems to try and uncover those scrambled radio messages. And so it was a big game of cat and mouse where one was trying to outdo the other, and we were spending more and more money trying to buy more and more sophisticated equipment just to protect these kind of secret radio messages that we didn't want the opposition to find out about. But of course the thing is, you never quite knew exactly what was being heard and what wasn't, because how good was their system? How much were they able to unscramble? So you never quite could be confident enough to talk openly on your own system, despite all the effort that went into it. I mean, quite amusingly, our engineers on the radio check at the beginning of every single morning used to always say good morning. In fact, I remember Tyler Alexander, the American engineer that we had, always used to start the morning radio check by saying, "Good morning, Mr. Ascanelli," one of the chief engineers at Ferrari, because he was absolutely convinced that they were listening to everything that we did. So he'd even radio check the Ferrari guys from our garage, knowing that they were probably listening to what we were talking about. So I'm just off to the post office quickly to deliver a book that I'm sending to somebody with the official F1 Elvis seal of approval. An increasing number of my daily dog walks seem to be ending up in the local pub at the moment, which is no bad thing, nothing wrong with that. It's next door to the post office, so I did go to the post office, but it's very difficult to walk past the pub when the fire's raging, there's smoke billowing out the chimney. It looks very inviting, I've got to say. Also, I've just noticed that I'm afraid I had my finger hit the zoom button for most of that dog walk, so I really do apologise. You've had to look at a massive close-up of my ugly mug for the whole first part of this video. Apologies for that. Right, quickly, the second thing I wanted to talk about in today's video, you may have seen this last week. This was an announcement by Formula E that here in the UK, the season 5 of the championship, starting in December, will be broadcast live on YouTube. Now, you may think, well, that's nothing new. You know, there are lots of championships that are streamed on YouTube. Absolutely true. It is a great platform. You know, I'm a massive fan, and I guess many of you are as well, having found me on here. It's nothing new to stream motorsport on YouTube, but this is an actual partnership with YouTube. It goes beyond just streaming the content. This is talking about making content specifically for the YouTube arena, using YouTubers to present it, using massive influencers. It's going to be regularly hosted by Lawrence McKenna, a YouTuber. It will have guest presenters of the like of people like KSI, people who have 20 million subscribers on YouTube. Huge, massive influencers, if you like. Hate that word, but influencers. And this shows a real kind of vision from Formula E to really try and break this younger, this next gen digital market, and of course free to air, which many of the other championships, look at Formula 1, has increasingly over the last few years gone behind paywalls in many territories, and as a consequence massively losing viewer numbers, just simply because people don't want to pay for that content. So YouTube's a great place to do that, but making the content directly for YouTube means that they have access to the YouTube space in London, which is a great facility. I've filmed there many times myself, has incredible resources and facilities to be able to use. But bringing in these influencers that already have an enormous following on the YouTube platform undoubtedly, and this will depend how far the contract with these people actually goes, but it will undoubtedly bring in a huge number of new viewers to experience Formula E for the first time. Now, it will depend whether the contract with Formula E and the YouTubers extends to just a few tweets, or whether it extends to, you know, making bespoke programming for their YouTube channels around Formula E. I mean, there's an endless variety of things you could do, but the possibilities to bring in people to this brand new season of Formula E, where don't forget that the new generation cars, the Gen 2 cars, are on display. There are new manufacturers, new drivers, big names. It's a really great opportunity to start afresh in terms of trying to grow that audience. They're targeting a very different audience to Formula One, don't forget. A younger audience, an audience that is very, very capable and keen to just watch things when and wherever they want, on their mobile phones, on their laptops, on their tablets. It doesn't matter. They want to be able to do it on their terms. That's the YouTube generation. And Formula E is very, very open to doing that. So I think it's a really great announcement. There are going to be TV announcements for the UK that follow it as well. That's coming, I would imagine, before very long. But the fact that YouTube here in the UK has become a rights holder and a partner at Formula E, I think, is a real sign of innovation and a real sign of Formula E's intent on growing their platform in conjunction with what is already a very well established massive platform right here on YouTube. So watch this space. There is going to be bespoke programming in the build up to the races. They will continue to show the world feed as the race is on, with commentary from Jack and Dario, but there will be bespoke programming made around the races by YouTubers for people on YouTube. So I think a real thumbs up to Formula E. Let me know what you think. Anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on that and some of the Team Radio stuff that I've talked about. I hope this has been an informative Electric Tuesday. If you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, share it around please, and I'll see you tomorrow.